Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is an 80s anime movie about Nausicaa, who's of the Valley of the Wind, and her journey in this windy, mysterious, giant insect-ridden world that's actively being taken over by something called the Sea of Decay. And the Sea of Decay is killing everything, and well, that sucks. But alright, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button to be up to date. Let's grow this channel. I really appreciate it. Now, I gotta talk about Nausicaa a little bit because she's the main character, but in order to understand the diplomatic aspects explored in this movie, Nausicaa's role in all this needs to be explored a bit. So, Nausicaa, our main character and leading lady, is definitely fascinating. She's the princess of the Valley of Wind, and she rides a really impractical looking glider. But she's resourceful, reliable, and a massive risk taker. She's basically the leader of the valley. And speaking of the valley, the men have these enormous, comically large mustaches, which are also kind of impractical, but aside from that, here's the interesting thing about Nausicaa. She likes animals, and she has some weird innate power that allows animals to kinda like her back with little effort. But usually there is some effort, and it comes at the cost of bodily harm on her. And the giant insects seem to tolerate her more than every other human being in this world. Heck, they seem to listen to her at times. Nausicaa's love for the insects is important for the story later on, but the world of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind needs a quick explanation too. So, the world in this movie is dying, and the insects, particularly these guys, the Ohms, trampled the world, but the Valley of the Wind is one of the last areas on Earth that hasn't been touched by the Sea of Decay, and these giant insects come from the Sea of Decay, right? Oh, and as usual, the humans are fighting one another. There's some war going on for a giant egg that belonged to a prehistoric ancient humanoid giant race that caused a lot of problems in the past. And Nausicaa and her village literally just got forced into this war by pure happenstance, I guess. So, there's a war going on between some two nations, and the Sea of Decay, which is an ever-expanding habitat of fungi and ugly insects, continues to grow. And Nausicaa is forced to play diplomat between all of these parties, the insects and humanity, as well as indirectly ending this war between these two nations. All in a couple of days, actually. And she also has to somehow prevent the Sea of Decay from destroying the world. Definitely a big job, but clearly she has what it takes. So, Nausicaa's character and actions throughout the movie really enforce diplomacy and building bridges in order to form relationships. And that diplomacy was not easy to achieve, I'll tell you that, because as everything we see in this movie is basically at odds with another thing. The humans are at odds with the insects, and the humans are also at odds with other humans, and the Sea of Decay seems to be at odds with the Earth. Any spore coming from that Sea of Decay causes destruction on the forests and the farms. So basically, there's no harmony. But Nausicaa's highest role and destiny is to bridge the gaps between these forces. So these forces that are fighting against each other, she has to bring harmony, and in order to do this, Nausicaa, rather than fighting like before, chooses the hard path of forming bonds and giving these guys a chance. And as most of these things go, they backstab and trample over her corpse. But here's the thing, she does succeed. She overcomes and shows these people and the insects that actually, you know what, we can sort of coexist. Who knew? So, Nausicaa's persistence, resolve, and self-sacrificing nature overcomes the anger of the Ohms, and by that, ends the Sea of Decay, somehow, and brings harmony and a new future of coexistence between the Earth, the insects, and human beings. Now, that brings me back to Nausicaa and the Ohms. So Nausicaa, if you've seen the movie, has a soft spot for insects, and they sort of have a soft spot for her too. And as a child, she rescued a baby ohm, and that love and lack of prejudice and insect racism Nausicaa had from the very beginning really got the events that kind of took place to this point that they're currently at, in a way. Because as a simple watcher of this movie, we see these insects mostly from Nausicaa's perspective. And what do I mean by that? How Nausicaa sees them is how we are expected to view these insects. Reclusive and guardians of the Sea of Decay, right? They don't mean any harm. Even though at the slightest bit of rage, they go berserk and trample everything. But Nausicaa likes them, and we're also expected to like them. So we do. And Nausicaa forms a treaty between men and these big ugly insects, not with a pen but with her blood. So yeah, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is definitely unique, and I don't even recall how I even stumbled upon it. I think it was during a phase where I was watching anime from the 80s, like 3 years ago. Yeah, well, thanks for watching.